Before dawn broke over the Marine Corps base, a heavy silence hung over the training grounds. The air was thick with anticipation as 289 Marines assembled in precise formation, their boots crunching softly against the gravel. The sky was a soft shade of gray, hinting at the sun's slow approach. Among the crowd, Sergeant Riley moved steadily, her eyes sharp, scanning the faces of the men and women standing before her. This wasn't just another training day. Something about the tension made even the birds quiet. Riley was no stranger to pressure. She had spent years in combat zones, faced dangers most could only imagine, and earned her stripes through grit and determination. Her reputation as a strong, fair leader had spread through the ranks. Yet today felt different. There was an unspoken weight in the air, the kind of weight that settled deep in your bones before something changes forever. She stopped at the front of the formation, standing tall and steady. Her uniform was crisp, the medals on her chest reflecting the first hints of sunlight. Around her, whispers flickered among the Marines. Rumors of an evaluation that could decide careers had spread quickly. Everyone was watching, waiting for a signal, but no one expected what came next. Sergeant Blake stood apart from the group, his posture rigid, but his eyes restless. Known for his aggressive nature and sharp tongue, Blake wasn't the kind of Marine who followed quietly. He had always challenged authority in subtle ways, but today something in him snapped. His gaze locked on Riley with an intensity that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. A silent challenge. No one spoke. The formation was still, but the tension was almost unbearable. Riley felt the weight of every gaze, every heartbeat sinking with hers. She knew Blake's move wasn't just about her. It was a test for everyone watching. A test of respect, of power, and of who would lead. The base was a world of discipline, where every order mattered, and loyalty was earned through actions. Riley understood that better than most. She had fought for every inch of respect she commanded, and now it was on the line. Suddenly, Blake took a step forward. His movement was slow, deliberate, meant to unsettle the formation and force a reaction. The murmurs grew louder, the collective breath held tight in chests. Riley's heart pounded, but her face remained calm, almost unreadable. She could see the flash of challenge in Blake's eyes, but also the doubt, maybe even fear, hiding behind his bravado. The moment stretched longer than it should have. Time seemed to slow as the Marines waited for Riley's response. The silence was deafening. Then, without a word, Blake lunged forward, breaking the stillness. His attack was sudden, aggressive, a move meant to intimidate and assert control. The formation gasped. Some Marines took a step back, others froze. Riley's instincts kicked in immediately. She had trained for moments like this, though never quite like this, a challenge from within her own ranks. Her body moved before her mind could catch up. Years of combat sharpened her reflexes. She sidestepped, eyes locked on Blake's every movement, anticipating the strike. The energy between them was electric, a battle not just of strength, but of wills. The crowd of 289 Marines watched in stunned silence as Riley countered, not with brute force, but with precise skill. She used Blake's momentum against him, redirecting his attack with a fluid motion that spoke of discipline and control. In that instant, the power shifted. Blake's aggression broke before her calm, practiced defense. A hush fell over the training grounds. The Marines exchanged looks, their respect for Riley growing by the second. Here was a leader who didn't just demand respect. She earned it with every move. The strength of her retaliation was more than physical. It was a statement about what it meant to lead. Riley stood tall, breathing steady, eyes scanning the crowd. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The silence itself carried the message loud and clear. Leadership was not about domination. It was about honor, discipline, and earning trust, especially in moments of conflict. Blake, now humbled, slowly nodded, The fight drained from him. The formation relaxed, the tension dissipating like morning mist. Training resumed, but the memory of what had just happened lingered in every Marine's mind. This was more than a fight. It was a lesson in leadership and respect, witnessed by 289 Marines who would carry it with them for years to come. Sergeant Riley had shown them all what true strength really looked like: steady, controlled, and unbreakable. The morning light stretched across the base, casting long shadows that mirrored the tension still hanging in the air. The Marines stood rigid, their eyes flickering between Sergeant Riley and Sergeant Blake. What had just unfolded wasn't part of the day's plan, but now it was impossible to ignore. The entire battalion was watching, waiting to see how Riley would respond to the silent challenge Blake had thrown. Blake's stare was heavy with something more than defiance. It was a test. He wasn't just questioning Riley's authority. He was daring her to prove why she led. The other Marines sensed the unspoken challenge and shifted uneasily. This was about power, respect, and the fragile balance that kept the ranks united. Riley knew this battle wasn't just physical. It was deeper. It was personal. It was about the respect that every Marine craved and the leadership they depended on. Riley felt a sharp pulse in her chest, but her voice remained calm as she finally spoke. "Sergeant Blake, you're testing more than just me. You're testing the unit." Her words carried weight, steady and unyielding. This isn't about ego or bravado. It's about who we are when the pressure hits hardest. Blake's lips tightened, but he didn't respond. Instead, he took another step forward, breaking the line between challenger and leader. His movements were calculated, every inch radiating control and aggression. The Marines tensed, some gripping their rifles tighter, others holding their breath. Blake's eyes never left Riley's, daring her to back down. Riley's mind raced through years of training. She remembered the countless drills, the nights in the field under fire, and the sacrifices that had shaped her. Every instinct told her this moment was a crossroads, not just for her, but for the entire battalion. Suddenly, Blake moved again, this time faster. His attack was sharp, a blur aimed to catch Riley off guard. The crowd gasped as he closed the distance with a force that threatened to overwhelm. But Riley was ready. Her response was immediate, fluid, and precise. She parried, twisting her body with practiced grace, turning Blake's energy back on him. The strike was sharp, breaking his momentum and sending a clear message. She was no easy target. The formation watched in stunned silence. Some exchanged glances, their respect for Riley growing. They had heard stories about her, but witnessing her strength and control firsthand was something different, something real. Riley's retaliation wasn't just about defense. It was a display of leadership, discipline, and courage that inspired every Marine standing there. Blake stumbled, briefly shaken. The fire in his eyes flickered, replaced by a grudging acknowledgement. Riley's steady gaze held him, unflinching. "This isn't about proving who's tougher," she said quietly. "It's about trust, and trust is earned through respect, not fear." The words sank deep into the formation. The Marines shifted from tension to reflection. The challenge had been fierce, but the lesson was clear. This wasn't a fight to win. It was a moment to learn. For Blake, the realization came slowly. His pride had pushed him to test Riley, but now he saw her strength was different, unshakable, earned through experience and integrity. He nodded slightly, the fight leaving his posture. The formation relaxed, the heavy tension lifting like a fog. The rest of the day passed with a renewed focus. Training resumed, but the energy had changed. The Marines moved with a deeper respect for each other and for their leaders. Riley's example became a quiet rallying point, a reminder that strength wasn't measured by aggression alone, but by how you stood in the face of it. In the days that followed, whispers of the confrontation spread through the ranks. Older Marines shared the story with new recruits, emphasizing the lesson learned that morning. Leadership was about more than orders. It was about character, resilience, and earning respect without raising your voice. Sergeant Riley's stand became more than just a moment on the training ground. It became a symbol of what it meant to lead with honor. The challenge Blake had thrown was answered not with anger, but with strength and wisdom. And, in doing so, she changed the way 289 Marines saw leadership forever. The story of that day, marked by quiet courage and undeniable skill, continued to inspire. It reminded everyone that true leaders rise above conflict, not by overpowering, but by showing the way. Riley had proven that, and her legacy was only just beginning. The tension in the air was electric as the Marines stood frozen, the weight of what had just happened settling heavily on everyone's shoulders. Sergeant Blake's challenge had shifted the dynamic of the entire battalion, and now, every pair of eyes was glued to Sergeant Riley. The question lingered, what would she do next? Riley's breath was steady, her body poised like a coiled spring. This was no longer just a test of strength. It was a test of resolve, of leadership under pressure. She had faced danger in combat zones where every decision meant life or death, but this was different. This was personal. It was a fight for respect and authority in front of 289 Marines who depended on her. Blake's expression was unreadable, a mix of determination and something darker, resentment. He had tried to assert dominance, but Riley's calm retaliation had shaken him. Now, with the entire unit watching, he wasn't just fighting her. He was fighting for his own pride. The crowd sensed the unspoken battle brewing, holding their collective breath as the next move hung in the balance. Without warning, Blake shifted his stance, the muscles in his arms tightening as he prepared to strike again. The sudden motion broke the silence like a clap of thunder. This time, his attack was faster, more aggressive, a calculated move meant to catch Riley off guard. The sound of boots scraping against gravel echoed sharply, the tension snapping taut like a drawn wire. Riley's mind sharpened, memories of training drills and combat scenarios flooding back in a flash. She anticipated his move, her body reacting instinctively. With lightning-fast precision, she dodged to the side, barely missing the force of his strike. The crowd gasped as the two sergeants clashed in a flurry of motion, their movements a blur of controlled power and agility. The fight was fierce, but Riley's years of experience gave her an edge. She wasn't just fighting Blake's strength. She was reading his intent, predicting his moves with the calm of a seasoned warrior. Each counterattack was deliberate, measured, not reckless. Her hands moved with a practiced grace, blocking and redirecting his force, turning his aggression against him. For a moment, the entire base seemed to hold its breath, caught in the raw intensity of the confrontation. The clash wasn't just physical. It was a battle of wills, a silent conversation between two soldiers testing their limits. Riley's eyes locked on Blake's, steady and unyielding, sending a clear message. She was not to be underestimated. Suddenly, with a swift maneuver, Riley found an opening. She shifted her weight, applying a precise hold that brought Blake off balance. The move was clean and controlled, designed to subdue without causing harm. Blake stumbled, the shock of the counterattack washing over him like a wave. The formation erupted into murmurs of disbelief and awe. Riley didn't release her grip immediately. Instead, she held Blake steady, her voice cutting through the silence with quiet authority. "This isn't about proving who's stronger," she said. "It's about showing who can lead with honor and integrity." Her words carried the weight of truth, resonating deeply with the Marines watching. Blake's resistance faltered. His breathing was heavy, his pride wounded, but slowly giving way to respect. The fight had stripped away his bravado, revealing the raw vulnerability beneath. Riley's calm strength had not only broken his attack, but also challenged his understanding of leadership. The Marines around them shifted, a wave of respect rippling through the ranks. They saw more than just a physical victory. They saw a leader who embodied the values they all aspired to uphold. Riley's stand was a reminder that true strength came not from aggression, but from control, discipline, and the courage to stand firm in the face of adversity. As Riley released Blake and stepped back, the formation broke into quiet applause. The battle was over, but its impact would echo for years. The 289 Marines had witnessed something rare, a moment where respect was earned not through intimidation, but through unwavering resolve. In the days that followed, the story of the clash spread throughout the base, becoming a lesson in leadership and strength. Riley's actions inspired others to look beyond brute force and focus on the qualities that truly defined a leader. Her courage and skill had set a new standard, one that would shape the future of the battalion. The memory of that day lingered long after the sun had set. It became a touchstone for every Marine who faced challenges ahead, a reminder that in the crucible of conflict, it was character, not strength alone, that determined who would rise. Sergeant Riley had shown them all what it meant to lead, calm, confident, and unbreakable. The crowd of Marines was silent, the tension lingering like a thick fog. Sergeant Riley stood steady, the calm in the storm. Her breath was measured, her eyes locked on Sergeant Blake, whose pride had been wounded, but whose spirit was far from broken. The battle was more than physical. It was a test of will, of character, and of leadership. Every Marine watching felt the weight of the moment, understanding that what happened next would define more than just two soldiers. Blake's shoulders tensed, his jaw clenched. He wasn't used to being challenged like this, especially not by a woman. In his mind, authority was something earned through force, through proving you were the strongest. But Riley had shattered that belief in an instant, showing him, and everyone watching, that leadership was something different. It was about control, discipline, and respect earned through actions, not intimidation. Riley took a slow step forward. Her voice was low, but carried across the formation. "This isn't about breaking each other down," she said. "It's about building a team that can trust each other, no matter what comes their way." The Marines listened, drawn in by the quiet power behind her words. Blake looked away for a moment, the fight in his eyes dimming. Then he met her gaze again, this time with a flicker of something new, acknowledgement. He nodded slowly, a silent truce forming between them. The tension began to ease, replaced by a growing respect. The training ground seemed to breathe again. The sun had risen fully now, casting light over the battalion and illuminating the faces of 289 Marines who had witnessed a moment few would forget. They had seen strength that wasn't loud or brash, but steady and true. Riley turned to address the entire formation. "Every Marine here knows what it means to face pressure," she said. "Whether in training or in combat, it's how we respond that defines us. Respect isn't given freely, it's earned. And it's earned through trust, courage, and integrity." Her words struck a chord. The Marines straightened, their posture reflecting the weight of her message. They weren't just soldiers, they were a family, bound by shared trials and mutual respect. Riley's leadership had reminded them of that bond. Blake stepped forward, clearing his throat. His voice was rough but sincere. "I misread the situation," he admitted. "I thought strength was about overpowering others. But today, I saw something different. Riley showed me what real strength looks like." The crowd murmured approval. Blake's words weren't easy for him to say, but they meant everything. The battalion had just witnessed not only a confrontation, but a transformation. It was a lesson in humility and growth, delivered on the harsh terrain where lives could depend on trust. Riley nodded, acknowledging his words. "We all have room to grow," she said, "but we grow strongest when we face challenges together." The unity in her voice was unmistakable, inspiring every Marine to look beyond their own pride and focus on the mission. For the rest of the day, the atmosphere on the base shifted. Training drills resumed with renewed focus and determination. The story of the morning's confrontation spread quickly, becoming a symbol of what true leadership meant. It wasn't just about orders or rank, it was about courage, respect, and the strength to stand firm when tested. Older Marines began sharing the story with new recruits, emphasizing the lessons learned. Riley's example became a benchmark, a reminder that strength and leadership came in many forms. The image of her standing tall, facing down a challenge in front of 289 Marines, inspired others to aim higher and lead with honor. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the training ground, the battalion gathered for their evening formation. The air was different now, charged with respect and unity. Sergeant Riley stood at the front, her presence a steady beacon. The challenge had passed, but its impact was lasting. The Marines knew that the story they had witnessed would be told for years to come. It was more than just a moment of confrontation. It was a defining chapter in their shared history. Sergeant Riley had shown them all that true strength wasn't about breaking others. It was about lifting them up, earning their trust, and leading with unwavering integrity. That day marked a turning point, not just for Riley and Blake, but for every Marine who stood in formation. They had learned that leadership was a responsibility carried with humility and courage. And in that lesson, they found the strength to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. The days after the confrontation were unlike any the battalion had seen before. The story of Sergeant Riley's stand spread like wildfire, not just through whispered conversations, but in every corner of the base. It was a story about more than a fight. It was a story about respect, leadership, and the kind of strength that didn't shout but commanded quietly. The Marines felt it deep in their bones. They had witnessed something rare, something that would change how they saw their leaders and themselves. Riley herself was different now, though no one could put a finger on exactly how. She moved through the ranks with the same calm confidence. But there was a new layer to her presence. It was as if the entire battalion's eyes were on her, expecting more than orders. They expected inspiration, guidance, the kind of leadership that came from experience and heart. Sergeant Blake was part of that change, too. The challenge he had thrown was born from frustration and pride. But what he had learned was something far more valuable. He began to approach Riley with a new respect, sometimes seeking her advice during drills or quietly observing her approach to leadership. The silent truce they'd formed turned into a partnership that the Marines noticed and admired. One afternoon, during a tough physical training session under the scorching sun, Blake stumbled. His pace faltered, exhaustion washing over him like a tide. Without hesitation, Riley slowed her own stride and caught up to him. "Keep going," she said, voice steady but encouraging. "You've got more than you think." The simple words, spoken with genuine belief, lifted Blake's spirits. It was a small moment, but it spoke volumes about the bond forming between them. The entire battalion began to shift in subtle ways. Marines who had once been distant or skeptical started to open up, motivated by the example Riley set every day. Her leadership was no longer just a title. It was a living force driving them forward. Training was sharper, morale was higher, and the unit moved with a unity that had been missing before. But Riley knew leadership wasn't just about strength or respect. It was about vulnerability, too. She shared stories from her own journey during quiet moments, telling younger Marines about the struggles she had faced, not just in combat, but in proving herself in a male-dominated world. She spoke of doubt, fear, and the pressure to always be perfect. Her honesty forged connections that went beyond rank and uniform. One evening, after a long day of drills, a young Marine approached her. "Sergeant Riley," he said, hesitating, "how do you keep going when it feels like everything is against you?" Riley looked at him, seeing her younger self in his eyes. "You focus on the mission," she replied softly. "But more importantly, you focus on the people beside you. No one gets through this alone." The Marine nodded, his resolve strengthening. Riley's words echoed in his mind long after he walked away. It was clear her leadership was not just about giving orders, but about building a family, a battalion that could rely on each other through any storm. As weeks turned into months, Riley's influence grew. She was invited to speak at base events, sharing her experiences and the lessons she'd learned from that unforgettable confrontation with Blake. Her story became a symbol of resilience and respect, inspiring not just Marines, but officers and recruits alike. The bond between Riley and Blake evolved into mutual respect and teamwork. They trained together, pushing each other to be better. Their rivalry transformed into collaboration. It was a testament to how challenges could turn into opportunities for growth. One morning, during a particularly grueling exercise, Blake called out to Riley, "Let's show them what we're made of." They charged forward together, their movements synchronized, a perfect example of leadership forged in fire. The 289 Marines watched, knowing they were witnessing something rare. Leaders who had faced conflict and emerged stronger, united by respect and purpose. The story of that day, the day Riley broke Blake's attack before 289 Marines, was no longer just a tale of confrontation. It was a living legacy, shaping the hearts and minds of everyone who wore the uniform. Sergeant Riley had proven that true leadership was about strength tempered with compassion, courage balanced with humility. She had turned a moment of conflict into a lifetime of inspiration. And for every Marine standing in formation, that was a lesson they would carry forward. Always. The days following the shift in leadership dynamics brought a renewed sense of purpose to the battalion. Sergeant Riley's presence became a steady force, a reminder that strength was not measured solely by brute power, but by character and resolve. Marines who once doubted her abilities now looked to her as a beacon, a leader who embodied resilience and wisdom forged in the toughest of fires. Word of Riley's confrontation with Blake reached even higher ranks. Officers recognized the profound impact her actions had on the battalion's morale and cohesion. It wasn't just about the physical victory. It was the message that true leadership requires balance, empathy, and an unwavering commitment to the team. Riley was invited to lead specialized training sessions focused on leadership under pressure. She spoke candidly about the moment when Blake challenged her, how she fought not just to defend herself, but to demonstrate the values that held their unit together. Her stories resonated deeply with Marines who faced their own battles, both within and outside the training grounds. Meanwhile, Blake transformed from a skeptic to one of Riley's most ardent supporters. He worked harder than ever, driven by a newfound respect and a desire to match her example. They trained side by side, pushing each other through grueling drills and long nights. Their rivalry evolved into partnership, each recognizing the other's strengths and weaknesses. One afternoon, during a demanding obstacle course, Blake stumbled but didn't fall. Riley caught him before he hit the ground. Their eyes met, no words were needed. In that silent exchange was a powerful understanding. They were stronger together. The battalion took notice. Morale soared as Marines embraced this new era of unity. The story of Riley's stand was told not just as an anecdote, but as a lesson in leadership, courage, and respect. It became a guiding principle woven into the fabric of their daily lives. Riley also focused on mentoring younger Marines, especially women who saw in her a role model. She encouraged them to trust their instincts, to speak up, and to never shy away from challenges. Her mentorship was more than training. It was a lifeline, fostering confidence and resilience. One evening, after a tough day of drills, a young Marine confided in Riley about his fears of failing in combat. She listened, then shared her own moments of doubt and uncertainty. "Courage isn't the absence of fear," she told him softly. "It's moving forward despite it." The young Marine nodded, feeling a weight lift off his shoulders. As the battalion prepared for a large-scale exercise simulating real combat, the lessons learned from Riley's leadership came into sharp focus. Every Marine was tuned in, working not as individuals, but as a cohesive unit. Riley and Blake led different teams, coordinating their efforts seamlessly. The exercise was intense, pushing everyone to their limits. Communication was key, and Riley's calm presence helped steady nerves. When unexpected challenges arose, her quick thinking and decisiveness kept the teams on track. Blake's strength and determination complemented her leadership perfectly. At the end of the day, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the battalion gathered for debriefing. The atmosphere was electric, filled with pride and accomplishment. Riley addressed the Marines, her voice steady and inspiring. "This is what leadership looks like," she said. "Not just in victory, but in the struggle to keep moving forward together." Her words echoed through the ranks, a reminder that leadership was a journey, not a destination. It required constant effort, humility, and the courage to stand firm even when the path was uncertain. That night, as the base settled into quiet, Riley reflected on how far they had come. What began as a confrontation had blossomed into a powerful movement, a testament to the strength found in respect, trust, and shared purpose. The battalion was no longer just a group of individuals. They were a family bound by experience and driven by a leader who had proven, in the harshest way, what it meant to stand strong. And for 289 Marines, the story of Sergeant Riley's courage and leadership wasn't just history. It was a living, breathing legacy that would guide them through every challenge yet to come. The days grew tougher as the battalion prepared for their next deployment. The weight of responsibility pressed down on every Marine, but especially on Sergeant Riley. She felt the burden deeply, not just because of the mission ahead, but because of the example she had set. The story of her confrontation with Blake had grown beyond the base, reaching ears in command and inspiring younger Marines. Now, the challenge was to live up to that reputation. Riley knew that leadership was more than the moments when adrenaline surged and fists flew. It was in the quiet, relentless work, the hours spent preparing the Marines mentally and physically for what lay ahead. Each day was a test of endurance, focus, and the unspoken trust between leader and team. Blake had become a constant ally. Their partnership had grown strong, forged through countless hours of training and mutual respect. They pushed each other harder than anyone else, knowing that their example would set the tone for the entire battalion. They were not just leading Marines, they were shaping the future of a unit. One morning, during a grueling endurance march, Riley noticed Blake struggling with the pace. Instead of pressing on, she slowed and matched his stride. "We're only as strong as the weakest link," she said, voice steady. "We move together or not at all." Blake nodded, a silent thank you in his eyes. The battalion watched as their leaders demonstrated unity and compassion, not weakness, but strength. That moment rippled through the ranks. Marines who once saw leadership as a distant command began to feel its heartbeat. Riley and Blake were showing them what it meant to lead with heart and strength combined. As the deployment date loomed, tension grew. The unknown dangers ahead were a constant shadow. But the battalion was ready. They had trained hard, learned from their past, and forged a bond that no enemy could easily break. On the eve of deployment, Riley stood before the formation, her voice clear and unwavering. "Tomorrow, we face challenges that will test everything we've built together. But remember this, we are more than individuals. We are a team. We watch each other's backs. We carry each other when needed. That is our strength." The Marines absorbed every word, the fire in their eyes matching her own. They had seen leadership in action, and it had made all the difference. Deployment was a brutal test of everything the battalion had prepared for. The environment was hostile, the stakes higher than ever. But Riley's leadership shone brightest under fire. She was the calm in the chaos, the steady hand guiding her Marines through danger with clarity and courage. Blake was at her side, his strength and resolve unwavering. Together, they faced ambushes, harsh terrain, and exhaustion that threatened to break even the toughest soldiers. Yet, their unit held fast, moving as one, a testament to the leadership they had followed. In one critical moment, when a sudden attack caught them off guard, Riley's quick decision-making saved lives. She coordinated a strategic withdrawal, minimizing casualties and maintaining morale. The Marines trusted her implicitly because she had earned their respect through action and integrity. Back at base camp, after the dust settled, the battalion gathered again. The hardships had bonded them deeper than any drill could. They knew the battle wasn't over, but they also knew they could face whatever came next, together. Riley's reputation as a leader was cemented, not just by her victory over Blake, but by every moment she stood strong for her Marines. Her story became a beacon for others, a reminder that true leadership was forged in respect, courage, and unwavering commitment. As the mission continued, stories of Sergeant Riley's courage spread beyond the battalion, inspiring new generations of Marines. Her legacy was no longer just a tale of confrontation. It was a living example of what it meant to lead with honor, strength, and heart. And for every Marine who followed, that example was a guiding light in the darkest moments, a promise that no challenge was too great when faced together, led by someone who had truly earned their trust. The mission had tested the battalion in every possible way. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Yet through every challenge, Sergeant Riley stood as a pillar of strength. Her leadership had transformed the battalion, not just in skill, but in spirit. The bond among the Marines was unbreakable now, forged in shared trials and triumphs. Back at base camp after a particularly grueling operation, Riley gathered the unit together. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over weary faces. She looked out at the 289 Marines who had become her family, their eyes reflecting exhaustion but also determination. "I know these past months have pushed you beyond what you thought possible," Riley began, her voice steady and warm. "But remember, every hardship you faced has made us stronger. You're not just here because of your strength alone. You're here because of your heart, your courage, and your commitment to each other." A hush fell over the group. Her words weren't just encouragement. They were a testament to everything they had endured together. Blake stood nearby, watching with quiet respect. His journey alongside Riley had been transformative. From rivalry to partnership, he had learned that leadership was more than authority. It was about humility, trust, and standing with your team no matter what. The battalion's success in the field was proof of that. Their coordinated efforts had thwarted multiple enemy advances, saving countless lives. The respect Riley commanded wasn't born from rank alone, but from the unwavering loyalty she inspired. As the months passed, Riley's story became more than just a lesson in leadership. It became legend. New Marines arriving on base heard of her courage, her skill, and the moment she stood firm against Sergeant Blake in front of 289 witnesses. It wasn't just about a fight. It was about proving that leadership is earned every day, through every choice, every action. One afternoon, as Riley walked through the camp, a group of young Marines approached her. "Sergeant," one of them said, "how do you keep leading when it feels like the weight of the world is on your shoulders?" Riley smiled, the weight of experience settling gently on her face. "You don't carry it alone," she answered. "Leadership is about sharing that weight, leaning on each other when it gets heavy, and knowing that the people you lead will do the same for you." Her words sparked something in the young Marines. They understood now that true leadership was a shared journey, not a solitary burden. The battalion's deployment eventually came to an end. They returned home with scars and stories, proof of the battles fought and the bonds forged. But what remained strongest was the legacy Riley had created. A legacy of strength tempered by compassion, of courage anchored in humility. Back on home soil, Riley's role shifted. She took on the responsibility of training the next generation, passing down the lessons hard-won in battle. Her story became a cornerstone of their training, a reminder that respect, trust, and integrity were as vital as any weapon. In ceremonies and quiet moments alike, Marines would recall the day Sergeant Riley faced Sergeant Blake and emerged not just victorious, but unbreakable. They remembered the strength it took to stand firm against challenges, both physical and personal. That story inspired them to push harder, to lead better, and to carry forward the values Riley exemplified. Years later, when new recruits asked about the greatest leaders they might meet, Riley's name was spoken with reverence. She wasn't just a sergeant. She was a symbol of what it meant to lead with honor. And through every challenge the Marines faced, they carried with them the lesson Riley had etched into their hearts. Real strength is not in breaking others down, but in standing strong together, breaking through every obstacle with courage, respect, and unity. Sergeant Riley had not only changed the battalion, she had changed the way leadership was understood. Her legacy lived on, a guiding light for all who followed.